It's 9 o'clock on a Monday morning in February. As workers around New Zealand begin their day's work, so too do the 178 men and women on HMNZS Te Kaha. But this workday is a bit different. Commanding Officer Simon Griffiths won't be walking back in the front door to his house for 6 months. And between now and August, his ship will both remember history and create it.
The preparation's all done. We've been training and preparing for this moment for the last couple of months now. The last 2 weeks have been very busy, but all's in place and we're ready to deploy for what is going to be a very exciting 6-month deployment. This one is unique because it has a number of different facets to it that we're going to be doing. We'll be off Anzac Cove on Anzac Day, and while we're in the Mediterranean we'll be visiting Greece and also Turkey. And then we're also doing the maritime security operations off the Horn of Africa, which is going to be based around counter-piracy and counter-narcotics operations.
The sailors' families gather at Devonport Wharf in Auckland, where New Zealand's Navy ships have been farewelled for 75 years. For the next 6 months, the only contact most will have will be on the phone or over the internet.
Facebook will be a big part of how we communicate with our families. We have email these days, Wi-Fi on board at certain times, and then we're also trying to do some unique things around engaging with the kids. So we've got a little mascot and a blog, and that mascot, a little teddy bear, is going to tell his story of the deployment to the kids.
This is 20-year-old Ryan's first deployment. His mum and 2 nanas are here to see him off.
A bit nervous. It's going to be a while. It'll be the longest I've ever been away. Mostly worrying about how Mum will worry.
Really excited for places you only dream of going to see. And he's getting there.
He's just bloomed here, hasn't he? It's been a really good experience.
Exceptionally proud.
You did very well.
Even after 15 years of seeing her husband off, Jess says the goodbyes are still an emotional time.
It's always hard to say goodbye. Yeah. It's always hard to say goodbye, and it doesn't get easier with the kids. All of a sudden it hits, and you just sit there and something's happened, and next thing you're crying.
Hey, you guys just sort out this tallest on the fence, we can get out the shortest from the centre.
Finally, it's time to go.
Thank you!
Off on a 6-month journey that'll see the ship's company travel to Australia, Greece, Gallipoli, Istanbul, Africa and India. All up more than 70,000 kilometres, almost the equivalent of sailing around the world twice. The first stop is relatively close, our neighbours across the Tasman. Before they go any further, the ship's company spends 5 weeks training for the mission ahead. There are many risks that come with running a Navy battleship, and the crew have to prove they're up to it as a team.
Starboard side, 3 cabins on fire.
At the end of the 5 weeks, they undergo a grueling 48-hour test, facing everything that might happen to them on the mission ahead.
Be port side, hands to muster stations, hands to muster stations, hands to muster stations.
And this isn't a sightseeing cruise they're preparing for. Te Kaha will be part of an anti-narcotics operation off the coast of Africa, which is the main route for smugglers moving heroin from Afghanistan. Heading into an area renowned for pirates, they'll need to practice warding off attacks, dealing with fires, one of the greatest dangers to a ship at sea.
You're 2 tops 1.
And a large part of the upcoming operation, boarding suspected drug smuggling vessels, conducting searches, and facing whatever comes their way.
Think about what we're doing though. Do we want to get him out of here first? Yeah. If you're not needed, let's clear out. Let's get our kit. Let's get it upstairs.
A team of 30 examiners, all experts in their own areas, have joined the ship to put the crew through their paces. Dave Fairweather is leading the team.
We try and create as realistic a scenario as we can, and that makes it more believable for the ship's company, and if they believe what they're doing, it makes their response more realistic. Everything from blood to having ships, small boats attack the ship.
If any of you are going starting to strain, having difficulty carrying, let us know. Stop and put down patients.
Bring back.
If you any time you get any pain, let us know, okay?
Relax, you alright?
With the Sea Sprite helicopter on board, the potential hazards are huge.
Just got a shrapnel wound to the stomach. Stomach's coming out.
The mincemeat, fake blood, and prosthetic organs might seem amusing,
Hotel Casualty ME Workshop 2 Hotel.
but the reality of a crash on the flight deck is a horrific possibility they have to prepare for.
Water's on.
Roger.
Water is on. Come back.
And young Ryan is quickly coming to grips with everyday life on a Navy ship. During the testing phase, there's little sleep for crew or the examiners.
We work for typically about 18 hours. In doing that, it keeps the ship well stressed, and that makes sure that when they perform under pressure in the real environment, we know they'll be able to have some resilience and tolerance to a high stress environment.
As the ship heads back to dock in Perth, the examiners compare notes. Not everything has been perfect. Te Kaha's crew are young and have a lot to learn.
Easy. Hold, stand that. Ease.
Gather around, please, people. Relax.
The ship's company assembles on the flight deck as each department's results are announced. There's hits
Our boarding teams, really good team cohesion and well done.
and misses.
Not particularly flash in our planning perspectives as a whole, to try and drive where we're going and get the picture going forward.
But has Te Kaha done enough to get the green light? Or is this mission over before it's begun?
The whole ship organisation and the management side's doing quite well, and we consider that we're on track.
And it's a pass.
You've come a very long way in 5 weeks, and well done.
There's been some opportunities for improvement, is how we describe them, but equally there's been some really good successes, and so there's some great strengths, and one of them is actually the motivation of the people on board. They're very motivated and keen to learn and do better, which is fantastic.
The crew have proven they can handle any situation. And as Te Kaha makes her way to the other side of the world, the ship falls into its daily routine.
1337. Someone down in the corners, people speed up at the straights.
Going for a long run on a small ship isn't easy, but the crew work hard to stay in shape with daily PT.
Good work, Dreams. Keep it up. It's a good aspect, getting everyone out here and doing PT, because it kind of keeps you sane throughout. 14 minutes kind of keeps you sane. Being out here for so long gets people release a bit of stress that they build up at sea. So it's definitely builds into the health aspect of being on a frigate. Normal jogging, change. No exit, change, change. 14 minutes, 33 seconds.
This is all seafood going down, mate.
On board a 178 crew, it's a floating village, and one of the biggest jobs is keeping everyone fed.
I got it.
Winning.
Lexi Gray is part of the boarding team that'll be searching for drugs. But the rest of the time, she's hard at work in the galley.
It can be challenging at times, especially if we've got other exercises or other departments we have to deal to on board. To begin with, it's quite daunting. You come in here and it's like 180 people, but you get used to working in such large, well, bulk cooking, I guess.
On this trip, the galley team will prepare 100,000 meals, more than 17 tonnes of meat, and nearly 7 tonnes of potatoes. 4,500 chocolate bars too.
Food time. Best time to get sailors when they're hungry. I'm hungry now.
The after-dinner entertainment has become more wholesome since alcohol was banned on New Zealand Navy ships at the end of 2014. The free time is cherished, and the crew know they have a lot of hard work ahead of them. Te Kaha continues west through the Suez Canal, a brief stop off in Crete, and on towards a special location for most New Zealanders, Anzac Cove on the Gallipoli Peninsula in Turkey. It's a significant year for Australia, New Zealand and Turkey as they prepare for the 100th anniversary of the landing by Allied forces at Gallipoli in 1915. More than 56,000 Allied soldiers died here, including 2,700 Kiwis. They were attempting to capture the peninsula from Turkish troops, who themselves suffered similar losses to the Allies. "100 years ago, the Dardanelles Straits echoed with the shells of a naval onslaught. Tomorrow, the Straits will again be full of battleships, but this time utterly silent, as Te Kaha's crew forms a special part of the ceremony. A dawn sail past, together with naval vessels from around the world.
Ship's company, up!
The crew head off to bed. Alarms set for 4:30. It'll be a short, restless sleep, filled with thoughts of what happened to the young men here all those years ago. As dawn approaches, the crew are ready for the ceremony to begin. Exactly 100 years on from New Zealand's greatest military sacrifice.
We stood up there for a good hour and you take yourself back 100 years when the ships came in through the same waters to deliver those Allied troops onto the beach. Those young men back then would have been really feeling nerves, the deathly silence as you made that approach.
There's not many people that can say they've been to Gallipoli on the 100th year anniversary, so that was definitely a highlight for myself. You know, you get a lot of sense of feeling and pride standing on that cove, knowing 100 years ago, you know, that was where our soldiers, you know, came to fight for their Queen and country.
With their historic international role completed, it's time for Te Kaha to mark the day in their own way.
Ho! Ship's company! On decks!
We feel them still near us in spirit. We wish to be worthy of their great sacrifice. Let us then dedicate ourselves to the service of the ideals for which they fought and died. As the dawn pierced the night, so let the memory inspire us to work for the coming of new light into the dark places of the world.
New Zealand society today really does commemorate Anzac Day well. It is our one day of remembrance, and so it was really important for the ship's company to understand what had happened 100 years ago and the real reason why we've taken 2 months and sailed 14,000 nautical miles to come to this point on this day.
For Luke Hickey, this Anzac Day is significant in other ways. He's 21 today and is also being promoted.
I'm here. Like, this is what I've been waiting for since I posted to ship and since I joined the Navy. It's why I joined, just to travel. And I had a great grand uncle who was in the Māori battalion, and he's buried in Gallipoli. Very grateful for what they've done and what they gave up for us.
Born in Kaikohe, he'll be celebrating his 21st in Turkey.
Happy birthday to you. Hooray! Hooray!
It's me, Freddie.
After the crowds clear, Te Kaha's crew get a chance to explore the historic peninsula themselves.
More or less, they landed here 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers northwards in this location.
Now that we're up here, it's a really emotional feeling. You can sort of feel the eeriness and the tension as you come up. Just coming up and seeing the original trenches of where they were fighting and how much effort it would have taken just to get up here in the first place, it's pretty phenomenal that they made it this far. And you know, we're all extremely proud of them. That's why we're up here today, sort of celebrating what they did for our country. So my mother's side is at Rutherford, and I managed to see one over on the wall there. So I think it's worth a look up and see if I can find anything down the track, if we're a relation or anything like that.
From Gallipoli, Te Kaha heads to its next major port, the ancient Turkish city of Istanbul.
4-0, started lever ahead, 4-0 set.
Hands full in, hands full in.
To me, it's one of my favourite places in the world. Crossroads of the world, Europe and Asia, and history that blows the mind of your average New Zealander, thousands of years worth.
Yeah.
I came here 10 years ago with my wife on a holiday.
Yeah, it's good.
One month in Turkey.
Yeah.
And,
1 month in Turkey,
yeah.
Istanbul? How
And
many
we,
days?
6-7 days.
It's okay.
I loved it.
You loved it?
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
It changed it a lot, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes looks can be deceiving. Turkey has become a gateway for the Islamic State between Europe and Syria, and occasionally attacks happen in the city.
This is the southeast of the country where the majority of incidents are occurring. The theme here is it's against the Turkish military and the Turkish police. It is not against us. We are not a target. However, the terror threat is medium because you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So adopt the normal precautions.
Do I hold it this way? Oh, we want to get the fountain, eh? Hang on.
It's safer to head off in groups than going one deep, as it's known. And with ancient sights to see, the young sailors do just that.
How much? How much? 55 lira. I didn't think I would be here on the other side of the world. I just thought about it for years, and then I finally had the courage to sign up.
Too much.
It's amazing because you don't really get this in New Zealand. It's something you'd never see in the world unless you're here, once in a lifetime opportunity, but everything's just so beautiful. I'm so happy that I'm here, hey, this is just awesome.
Small cup, big cup?
Big cup, please.
How many?
Just the one, try it.
Adam Algana has something other than shopping on his mind. The Blue Mosque was built in the early 1600s, before Europeans ever set foot in New Zealand. It's hugely significant, and Adam has arrived just in time for the afternoon prayer call.
And as soon as I heard Istanbul, I knew straight away Blue Mosque, and I told my father and my family, and I said, no, I'm definitely, one of the things I'm going to tick off is I'm going to go and do my salat, my prayer. Even better that I get to share the experience with my friends, you know, that I went through the 3 months of basic training with, or, you know, been on other ships with, and they take into account my religion, and they respect me for that. And the Navy is very accepting, and and it accounts for, you know, different religions across the board, I suppose.
While Adam is praying, birthday boy Luke and his shipmate Jackson are taking part in a different kind of tradition, the Navy tattoo. For Jackson, it's a way of marking his time at the Gallipoli anniversary.
It's got a bit of meaning behind it, like it's the 100-year Gallipoli anniversary. They first landed, and I thought I'd get something to remember this trip by, and also remember all those soldiers and sailors and airmen that have fallen. Thank you.
With 65 years in the Navy between them, JJ and Dixie's tattoo days are in the past. They're happy with a few photos as a memento. A shave and a haircut.
Thank you.
And a Turkish coffee.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And these days, the family get to come along for the ride.
Now you're looking in my ear. That's a huge change in lifestyle for sailors when we go away now, is the fact that we can talk with family at home at any time, any place. You just go in and sort out the SIM card with the local provider, and away you go. You know, years ago it was six weeks waiting for a letter to come, and generally the information was normally all the bad things that happened at home. The lawnmower's broken down, you know, but these days you can talk. The communication's really good, and it's live, you know. So not only can you talk, but hold up the camera and go, "This is where I'm walking, who I'm with." So it makes it, makes it a lot better. Quite personal, actually.
After a hard day's exploring in the Turkish sun, the young sailors have earned a cold beer.
Thank you.
For some, it won't be the last one they'll have tonight. Others have work in the morning.
Thank you.
Part of the Navy's drive to curb its historic drinking culture has been to implement breath testing of all sailors as they return for duty. With nearly 200 sailors, most under 25, there are occasional slip-ups.
Oh, hey.
But this morning, everyone passes with flying colours.
Yeah. Yes!
And it's time to say goodbye to Istanbul. While Te Kaha is 13,000 kilometres away, beginning their anti-narcotics operation, most of New Zealand's naval presence is a fair bit closer to home. As well as patrolling our own waters and keeping an eye on the Southern Ocean, a lot of time is spent working with our Pacific neighbours. In the Solomon Islands, we find the offshore patrol vessel HMNZS Wellington, under the command of Lieutenant Commander Graham McLean.
It's hot and it's sticky, but it's great. There's a lot of energy. The local population have been really supportive and engaging with us. The ship's company have been getting involved with all the activities that have come their way, and there's a real buzz around a New Zealand ship being alongside in Honiara. We're enjoying it.
One of the activities the ship has planned is a visit to a Honiara school, one built by a New Zealand aid program.
Who wants to try out the radio? Have you guys seen a Navy ship before? Or a picture? Do you want to see a picture of a Navy ship? Yes. Okay.
Didn't know much about the Navy when we arrived, so we had to start from scratch, which is great. What it is that we're doing and what we do for society as a whole was really fun to try and communicate to the kids this morning. And the team that went up there were truly energised by the way the kids reacted to our presence and interactions.
The crew seem to have been energised too, persuaded into a running race.
think it was the 6-year-old who thought he could take us on, and he did, and I have to say they were quicker than we were in the running arena.
Down the road, other members of the ship's crew are repainting the toilet block at the local university. It's a big departure from Joanna's former career.
So I finished my second year at Otago University, and I'd been doing interning at a law firm, and I just realised I hated photocopying 4 hours a day, which was me in and out for 6 months. And I decided I needed to change and signed up for the Navy. You don't have many people from South Island in the Navy in general. I was the only person in my intake, to be honest. I've seen a lot of cool gunnery, a lot of boarding operations. It's funny because I didn't really know the extent of what we did when I first joined up, and you only really kind of get that idea when you actually get involved with it and you work for them.
Back at the ship, Wellington has opened its doors, allowing the Solomon Islanders a hands-on look at life on board.
Now we can see Honiara. Now we can start to see the port.
Now slam it forward a bit. Now it's ready to fire. Yep.
On the back deck, George Sinclair is using the downtime for some DIY.
Slip into there and I'll just, I don't know, secure it in with some Velcro or something.
As leading weapons technician, George is responsible for the weapons on board Wellington. Again, it's a big change from his former job in Whakatane.
I was up to nothing, I was like working at packet safe, so I was like, oh shit. Mum and Dad were starting to threaten me to pay board, so I was like, ooh, I don't want to pay that. And my mate was joining, so I was like, oh, I'll join the Navy with you, bro. And then I just like, I just chose a trade, so I'll try to get something out of it as well.
As the ship leaves Honiara, the next task is a commemorative one, an historic one. The Navy's links to the Solomons go back to the beginning of the Navy itself. During World War II, the Achilles was bombed here, killing 13 men. The Leander was torpedoed for the loss of 26. In 1943, the minesweepers Kiwi and Moore famously destroyed a Japanese submarine. For decades, the wreck could be seen jutting out of the water off Guadalcanal. Soon after that battle, the Moore was bombed here in Tulagi Harbour, killing 5. And it's over that site where the Wellington is holding a service, remembering those who lost their lives.
Coming in! Ho!
The Moore was hit by a 500-pound bomb, which drove through her commanding officer's cabin and exploded below. The Moore enlisted rapidly and sunk bow first, just on 4 minutes after she was hit. 5 ratings were killed. 7 ratings were seriously injured.
The Moore still lies below, once a home for young sailors, now a resting place. It's not alone. There are more than 50 ships wrecked in this area, along with planes and other equipment. So many, it's known as Iron Bottom Sound.
It was the real beginnings of the Navy as we know it today. It's a really important part of our history from a maritime perspective. The actions that took place here in these very waters were not only defining for the Pacific campaign, but for the entire World War II initiative. And we worked alongside allies like the US, like Australia, and like the Royal Navy. And in these very waters, Iron Bottom Sound, rest the hulks of all those nations' Navy vessels and sailors that sacrificed their lives for that.
It's been over 3 months since Te Kaha and its 178 crew set sail from New Zealand.
So recommend
and their attention has turned from remembering the past at Gallipoli to protecting the future.
Stow lines and fenders, stow lines and fenders.
The Royal New Zealand Navy has been a part of anti-piracy patrols for a number of years. But for the first time ever, they are patrolling the Indian Ocean off Africa for drug smugglers, who use boats to traffic heroin produced in Afghanistan out to the rest of the world.
This is the first time that the New Zealand Navy has conducted a counter-narcotics patrol. And it's really important to ensure the security of the area, that the drugs are being smuggled into the world system, and the selling of those drugs has been proven to be funding terrorist organisations.
The crew have been warned there's a high chance the 2-month mission will come up empty-handed. The Indian Ocean is a big place, and even if they find a smuggler's boat, it can be almost impossible to find the hidden drugs. So far, they've boarded a number of dhows, the small boats common in the area, but with no luck. Not for the Kiwis, anyway.
We've been working with the French, the Australian and British warships for the last month, and in that time we have had some success. Te Kaha hasn't as yet, but our Australian and British friends have found dhows with narcotics on board.
The process to even find a dhow is quite complicated. It's over 2 million square miles of water that we're patrolling. So a wooden dhow don't show up on radar too well, so a lot of it's done through the human eye. And we do have, aircraft that support us and try and find these dhows.
It's a tedious process, but for the team whose job it is to board the vessels, they make the most of the downtime in between sightings. They're practicing hand-to-hand combat and self-defense, skills that may be the difference between life and death if a situation were to become hostile on board a drug smuggling vessel.
One, down, hard gather, 2 gags. Good work.
And it's times like these that the crew misses the support from their loved ones back home. The crew each get half an hour of Wi-Fi every day, and while that helps keep families together, that daily interaction can make the remaining 23.5 hours even harder.
It's support from the families that makes you homesick for half an hour or so, but then you have to have comfort in the knowledge that what you're doing is part of the bigger picture. You get homesick and you feel a bit sad, but when you look in reflection and get some perspective, then it evens out.
The reason why I come to work every day, when we're back in New Zealand or on board the ship, is because of people like you.
As a senior member of the team, part of JJ's role is to keep spirits up with his junior crew.
Doesn't matter who you are, at some stage during the trip you get a little bit homesick, but the rest of the crew will help you get through it. We're at 8, service with strength, Te Kaha. You've got to be able to know people, you've got to be able to watch them and see, did I get that smile this morning from that person who normally smiles at me? No, I didn't. So for me, that's a trigger. And I'll say, hey, how are you? I don't probe, but I just say, how's things going and all the rest of it. Hey, you haven't smiled today, what's up? And quite often, that'll be the key for them to go, oh, well, actually, sir. And I go, great. And we sit down and discuss that and hopefully get the situation sorted out.
Okay, cool.
For Kyle Lomas, today is one of those days. He hasn't seen his wife Steph in 5 months, and it's his son Jared's 2nd birthday.
I'm really sorry I couldn't be there, but I'll be home soon. Love you.
The downside of that adventure and seeing the world and serving your country is that you do have to leave things behind. I have a young family. Many of the crew have young family. They have fathers, mothers, brothers and sisters. We do have to leave them behind for sometimes lengthy times. And in our case, for this trip, that's 6 months.
Since Te Kaha left in February, Kyle and Steph have found out that baby number 2 is on the way. Steph is used to managing on her own, but that doesn't make saying goodbye any easier.
You know that date's looming, and you try not to focus on it. But then when it comes closer to the date that that they're about to go, even before that, a few weeks before, you try and distance yourself. You actually end up having quite a lot of arguments. You almost push them away, so then it's easier for you to cope with. And at that last sort of week, you're just like, hurry up and get out of here. I want you to leave because it's actually, I just want to get on with it and carry on with life.
With the help of the internet, Kyle's birthday message for his son Jared has arrived.
It's there.
Hi Jared.
Daddy.
I'm such a long way away from you, and especially on your second birthday. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there, mate. I really hope you have a good day. Dad will be home soon, and make sure you're looking after Mum while she's pregnant with your either brother or sister, which isn't too far away. So Jared, you have a very, very special day. Dad will be home really soon, and make sure you look after Mum for me. Love you, Dad, son.
He's quite a sensitive soul, my husband. He was upset that he's not here, and he's been sending me emails. So he just really wants to be home with his family. So.
Back on Te Kaha, it's been nearly a month since the anti-narcotics patrol began, and still no luck.
Chips coming in! Hold!
Commander of the Joint Force, Major General Tim Gall, has arrived on Te Kaha to rally the troops.
Thanks very much for the warm welcome on board this morning. It is a really, really significant time in the world at the moment. We all read the papers and we all know all about ISIL and everything else. And it's important to really understand that the mission that you guys are doing is completely related to that. Yes, we are chasing narcotics for the sake of chasing narcotics, but we're also chasing narcotics because narcotics are a major source of terrorism funding.
The profits from the heroin trade are a substantial source of income for terrorist groups. Afghanistan's heroin trade is worth nearly $100 billion a year.
We want to be part of, good global citizenship. We obviously take drugs very, very seriously in New Zealand, and we were lucky that we're not part of, the major trafficking routes in the world, but it's important that we do our bit. So, while we're a really small part of a big operation, it's about putting the intelligence together to form a pattern of what's going on that allows you to actually achieve success.
Even with all the technology Te Kaha has, the Indian Ocean is a giant haystack, and they're looking for a needle.
Couple of PO acknowledged. All positions PO service investigate unknown 1062 bearing a 180. 10 nautical miles. Commence narrative, start recording. All positions also watch. Bearing 180, range 10 nautical miles. Possible dhow.
Despite the odds, another dhow has been spotted a few hundred miles off the coast of Tanzania. The type of boat and the direction it's heading suggest that it's likely to be a smuggling vessel.
All positions PO, unknown 1062. Possible dhow, now suspect Java dhow 1062. Action standby to commence VHF hails.
A dhow in the middle of nowhere almost, a few hundred miles off the coast, and it just happened to be travelling in the right direction, which set off all our tripwires of it's heading in the direction where we believe is a drop-off for narcotics.
2 personnel seen in aft section, 5 personnel seen moving toward forward part of the ship. Assess possible compliant action for potential boarding. Intend to close and conduct boarding procedure.
Boarding suspected drug trafficking vessels is a dangerous game. Carrying millions of dollars of heroin, drug smugglers can be unpredictable, and careful preparation and execution is crucial to the team's success and safety.
Tracking towards Tanzanian coast, about 2508 knots, so the exact course and speed you'd expect from a drug smuggler in this part of the world. The smack track.
Seeger Clarkson is in charge of the boarding team.
And we're expecting on this size of vessel 8 to 12 people as we've gone previously. Us 6 will be going up first, you guys will be shortly thereafter.
Essentially just looking for weapons or extra people that aren't mustered with the rest, because for a boarding team that's the only things that are dangerous to us, people and weapons. So we'd conduct minor personal searches of all the crew, just checking they haven't got any weapons on them, and then we'll kick into a full-scale search throughout the entire vessel.
Te Kaha's rigid-hulled inflatable boats, or RIBs, will approach the dhow and board it. They need to be fast, because if this vessel is trafficking narcotics, the smugglers may try to dump the evidence overboard.
see anyone throwing anything on the side or anything, sing out straight away. That's the watch. Port 30, coming around 2
Officer of the Watch, Brock West, ensures Te Kaha stays within close range of the dhow during the boarding in case things get ugly.
Here I was the watch, former captain, approved to proceed and close.
Under the watchful eye of his commanding officer, Simon Griffiths.
So you're going to come up there port side. We can engage in where we are now, sir, and then I'll be cutting across the stern and engagement. Bridge, roger.
Te Kaha's Sea Sprite helicopter will provide cover over the far side of the dhow, so the boarding party can't be taken by surprise. If the situation were to become hostile, the helicopter is armed and ready.
Midships, starboard 10. Steer 140.
Top light suspect, Jalbert Dow 1062, bearing at 1807 nautical miles, visually displaying at no flags.
Despite the rough conditions, the boarding team are safely onto the dhow. The first step is to secure it. Lieutenant Shiv Prasad begins questioning the crew about their backstory.
We're going into an unknown situation. We don't know whether they're armed or not. So from the personnel and crew on board, it would be quite intimidating having a whole lot of armed personnel come on board, but having myself unarmed and sort of making myself approachable, I think it goes a long way, and it makes them feel a lot more comfortable talking to me.
While the questioning takes place, the boarding party starts searching for clues.
Everything that can be moved, we move it. Everything that we can get into, we get into. Don't break anything, just look very, very thoroughly. Generally for myself, I'll be in the master's cabin. That's where a lot of the really important information comes from. Cell phones, bits of paper with GPS coordinates and all sorts of things like that. A lot of these people say they're fishermen and we haven't found a fish yet. And they've been at sea for months on end. And that's part of the things we look at to try and tell if this is a legit fishing vessel or a narcotics smuggler.
One of the crew has been identified as previously involved in drug smuggling. The chances he's now a legitimate fisherman are low, so the search steps up a notch.
There's brand new paint, there's new fiberglass in these dhows that look like they're about to sink. Any maintenance that's been done on them is essentially a sign that they might be hiding something in that area. Once we see those areas, we can report them back to the ship and we'll try to get approval for what we call keyhole searches. Basically, it's drilling about a 1 centimetre hole through into this possible false bulkhead, and then we've got what's called a boroscope, which is a camera at the end of a fibre optic lens, pretty much like the movies.
Even for a relatively small boat, searching is a time-consuming affair.
We've done all the rails forward, we haven't done the ones aft, we probably don't need to.
If they don't find any evidence soon, they'll have to call off the search. All of a sudden, everything changes. The search team have found something under the floorboards. And this is what it's all been for. They'll have to test it to confirm, but unless someone's gone to a lot of trouble to smuggle flour, they've hit the mother lode. And it just keeps on coming.
Okay, so that's 139 bags. Yeah, 139 all up.
139 kilograms of heroin. Quite the reward for a hard day at sea.
Initially, because we had done quite a few boardings without finding anything, a lot of people were sort of in shock that have we actually found drugs? And once it sort of sunk in, I think it was just, everyone was ecstatic. That was the reason that we'd been waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, it was well worth it.
Back on Te Kaha, the ship's company are eager to catch a glimpse of the haul.
There's the bus right there. Not bad.
Is that what it looks like?
Yeah.
Is it hard? It looks like little rocks. Yeah, I thought it was going to be powder.
Mark Avalos from the United States Naval Criminal Investigation Service, yes, that's the NCIS, is responsible for testing the seized powder and confirming what it is.
This is activating the laser. I'm going to do a pre-test on it, scan it.
Yeah. Oh, those guys on that, that was going to get shot.
Okay, there it is. Okay, we all agree that's approximately 1 kilo.
Te Kaha's crew have reason to celebrate. They've made history. The biggest ever drugs bust for the New Zealand Navy.
Awesome. Oh, it's piling up good. Ever since I joined the Navy, this is what I was told, that this is what life in the Navy is all about, doing extraordinary things, and I think that being able to conduct a boarding of a vessel off the coast of Africa and finding drugs worth hundreds of millions of dollars is definitely something that's extraordinary.
A big win. But tomorrow is another day. And as much as they'd like to tell their loved ones the good news, security concerns mean they have to stay tight-lipped for now.
It'll be great to be able to email and say, hey, we got $55 million worth of drugs today, good day at work. But you can't do that. We obviously don't want the drug runners to know that we're here and doing this, otherwise they may change what they're doing, and we don't want that to happen yet.
It's the right move. 4 days later, another grueling search turns up another haul of heroin.
Had to get underneath the floorboards because it was in quite a tight-knit space, so underneath the floorboards with the cockroaches and pulling up the drugs, it was pretty good, and I think successful for the ship and the whole operation.
How many each? 12?
5. So there's 5 each. Right, so 5, 10, 15.
114. Yeah. Same.
Finally, the news can be shared, and it's making headlines back home.
A New Zealand Navy frigate has dealt a big blow to international drug smugglers operating off Africa. The crew on Te Kaha seized almost $250 million of heroin in the Indian Ocean.
Hidden in compartments below decks, 139 kilograms of heroin.
14, 15.
Just a few days later, on Saturday, another bust of more than 100 kilograms. A total street value of over $230 million. With these two busts, Te Kaha has contributed over a quarter of the narcotics seized as part of this 30-country operation.
Overall, just a complete success for Te Kaha, for everybody involved, all the sailors, and specifically the boarding team and so forth. They've really put forth a great effort, and just the spirit of them to continue on, and I'm just glad that I was able to be a part of something this big in New Zealand Navy's history. I would say you guys are a shoe-in now to come back and do this mission again.
I'll be here.
I'll be here as the captain next time, hopefully. That's right.
With their heroin seized, the drug smugglers are sent on their way. There's no jurisdiction to arrest them. As for the heroin, apart from a sample sent off for testing, it's all flushed off the back of the ship with a bit of Kiwi ingenuity, a modified wheelie bin. And with the success comes a happy commanding officer.
So we want to give you one of our rugby jerseys.
Oh, wow.
Te Kaha being here is a way for New Zealand to make a difference and to play a part in keeping both the oceans and the world a safer place.
With the operation a success, Te Kaha begins the long journey home. It's still 6 weeks until they see their families. The next port of call is Cochin in India. And there's a special visitor to see them. Chief of the Navy, Rear Admiral Jack Steer, has arrived to present the sailors with medals for being part of the successful anti-narcotics operation.
It's been amazing for you, for our Navy, for our Defence Force and our country. And I don't say that lightly. I'm so proud of you that I could stand here and give you your medals today so you get them with all your mates around you. And everyone is so proud of everything you've achieved, especially in the last few weeks, but also for what you did at Gallipoli. You've done things that a whole bunch of sailors in our Navy will never get to do. So I hope you're very, very proud of everything you've done, because I tell you, the whole of New Zealand is really proud of you.
It's a special moment for the young sailors. From India, it's a long trip back, stopping in Australia. Then it's the final leg across the Tasman, and at last the crew's thoughts can fully turn to home.
The closer we got across the Tasman, the excitement builds, and then all of a sudden you see the Three Kings. And then at sunset last night there was Cape Reinga, and we saw the light going at the lighthouse, and there's dolphins, there's albatrosses, and that's pretty special. And then to wake up this morning, just approaching the Bay of Islands, and we're in cell phone coverage range, so you're starting to get messages from your family. All of that just helps build up the excitement.
For the past 6 months, Simon has been responsible for a lot of lives. Tomorrow, he'll be able to think of just his family.
It's difficult. I mean, I have been doing this for a long time, but I've got young children, so this has sort of been the first time I've been away for a huge. It's the first time I've been away for a long period of time with the 3 young kids. So no matter how many times you do it, it's always hard and there's always challenges. But seeing them tomorrow is going to be pretty special.
The ship clears customs in the Bay of Islands. Home is tantalisingly close.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. We've achieved so much on the deployment and we've worked so hard, and now we're coming home, and it's all good feelings. It's going to be a really big day.
It's been a big trip for Lexi Gray, peeling spuds one day, on the evening news as part of the Navy's heroin bust the next.
Me standing there with a shotgun, it was cool, it was good. You know, my family are very proud of it. That's why I love the Navy. So growing up, you know, I was a little bit of a tomboy. I like to do everything, so now I'm in the job, I get to do everything.
I'm not gonna cry.
3 months on, Jackson's Anzac tattoo has healed nicely. Soon he'll be able to show it off to his girlfriend. And he has another surprise for her too.
I'm getting engaged when I get back. We've been together 5 years, this month now, so I'll just do it then.
As well as loved ones, each crew member has something else they've missed.
I've missed my surfing. My last surf I got on was Sydney, so I can't wait to get back in the water. And I miss my guitar as well, my electric guitar, and being able to go to the fridge, you know, just eat when you want to eat, sort of thing.
Final preparations are made, presents are wrapped, and it's time. Te Kaha enters the Hauraki Gulf. Kyle Lomas is at the wheel.
Course 209, ma'am.
In Devonport, his wife Stephanie and young Jared are waiting for him. Jared's been given a certificate of bravery, and emotions are running high.
You want me to read it? Oh, Daddy's away. And being courageous.
Hundreds of family are waiting. Then the moment they've been waiting for 6 long months. As their eyes scan the crowd, the one thing all the Facebook, Skype and email in the world can't do, that first cuddle and kiss. Even for the old salts, it's still the best reward for a job well done. In just 4 weeks, Te Kaha will head off again. Destination, Singapore.
That's right. It is the modern world, you know. We're a busy Navy, and I don't know if New Zealand appreciates just how busy we are. We will literally do this trip, come back, refresh, restore, refuel, and carry on, because the commitments that we have as a Navy and as a nation don't stop.